What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Upper Hand Fantasy Podcast. This is Faraz Siddiqui. I'm here with none other than Zach Prescott from the Dallas Cowboys. Happy Halloween, everybody. Zach is dressed up as Dak. Splitting image of Dak Prescott over here wearing number 4. Dak did look kind of good yesterday, though.
Kind
of?
of?
His thing.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I liked it. I liked what I saw yesterday.
Yeah, no, for sure. He was looking like a good quarterback. He looked like his hand injury, his thumb injury is in the past at this point. So, it was good to see. If you're a Cowboys fan like yourself, that was good to see.
Yeah, 100%. Offense was back on track. Good for fantasy too. I mean, everything was clicking right for the Cowboys offense. I was a little disappointed that CeeDee Lamb didn't get any more really points after that touchdown catch, but we'll let it slide just this one time. They ended up putting up 4-9.
I wasn't so high on CeeDee Lamb going into this week just because I thought that the game script wouldn't lend itself to that. But the Bears look good, man, and we're going to talk about Justin Fields in a little bit.
Yeah.
But he looked good as well. So a lot of crazy performances in Week 8. First of all, not a whole lot of injuries, which is great, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a very light injury week. Cooper Kupp, he did have an ankle injury very, very late in that game. We don't really know how serious it is. It doesn't look too serious. It looks like a low ankle sprain. That's what a lot of people are kind of saying. And hopefully he'll be good to go this week. But other than that, not really many injuries to really worry about in terms of at least the fantasy relevant players that we know. So that's good. And on top of that, we had like a ton of ridiculous fantasy performances. We just posted up on Instagram all the crazy performances. Alvin Kamara, 42.8 fantasy points. Christian McCaffrey, 40.3 fantasy points. AJ Brown, 39.6. And this is obviously PPR. AJ Brown, 39.6 with his 3 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, 35.8 with his 200 rushing yards. DeAndre Hopkins, 33.9. Tony Pollard, 33.7 with his 3 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey, he had 3 touchdowns. Alvin Kamara, how many touchdowns did Alvin Kamara have? 2 touchdowns for him, right?
No, he had 3 total touchdowns. He had a rush.
He had
and
3
two
also.
Receiving.
That's right.
A lot of hat tricks. Deontay Foreman had a hat trick.
Foreman, like 3 touchdowns.
They were everywhere.
Tyreek Hill, no touchdowns, but still 31.5 fantasy points. Jalen Waddle had 2 touchdowns, 30.6 fantasy points, and DJ Moore with the game tying, not the game winning touchdown. Unfortunately, he gave the Panthers a tie, but he took away the win.
Yeah, you can take your helmet off in that fashion when it's the Minneapolis Miracle. Stephon Diggs. They had more than that. They weren't tying the game. That was to take the lead. That was a go-ahead touchdown. That's going to come back to haunt Panthers
with no time left on the clock. And listen, if you don't need the extra point, sure. But so if you don't know what we're referring to, and I'm sure you guys do, but if you don't know what we're referring to, DJ Moore had an amazing. First of all, PJ Walker rolling out of the pocket, making a great throw to DJ Moore. DJ Moore got away with a little bit of a push-off. If you saw the play, you know what I'm talking about. He pushed off the linebacker just a little bit. But, hey, he caught the touchdown to tie the game. They were down by 6. So that touchdown tied the game. They needed an extra point to win it, obviously. He took his helmet off with some time left on the clock, and you're not allowed to do that. You're going to get a penalty. So it was a 15-yard penalty. That extra point turned into a 48-yard field goal. And of course, right? You know that he was going to miss that one, right? Like you knew that as soon as he took his helmet off, he was going to miss it, and that's what happened. So the Panthers ended up going to overtime, and they ended up losing in overtime, unfortunately. But it was good to see some good fantasy performances from that team. I think not having Baker Mayfield definitely helps. DJ Moore, like he had 11 targets in this game, caught 6 of them for 152 yards and that touchdown. Deontay Foreman, 26 carries for 118 yards and 3 touchdowns. So we officially have some fantasy relevance on this team. Now, there was no Chuba Hubbard, right? They gave all the work to Deontay Foreman, and he did his thing big time. And, I would imagine that after this performance, he becomes the one favorite in that backfield by this coaching staff, even when Chuba's healthy.
Yeah. No, I just think it's crazy going off of what we're saying with DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore, maybe he took his, he's been having a bad fantasy season. Maybe he took his helmet off. He knew that they would miss the extra point just to buy his fantasy manager some extra time on the field. Maybe catch a couple more passes, pad his stats a little bit to make up for what we were missing while Baker Mayfield was at quarterback. I think that might have been, an underlying motive there. But with D'Onta Foreman, I think that he definitely bought himself some extra time, some extra work in his backfield, where before it was Chuba Hubbard, it was his show before he went down with that injury. I think that D'Onta Foreman is going to be a bigger part of the rotation moving forward. And we're still not sure. I mean, I don't know. I don't think Chuba Hubbard's going to miss next week or miss time, but we'll see how things go. Maybe if D'Onta Foreman gets another shot and another crack at being the number one again, like he was last week, I'd expect maybe not similar numbers, but he seems like a really safe option, even though the offense is bad. But it's not a dumpster fire, like we said 2 weeks ago. So that's encouraging.
It might not be. I mean, maybe it's because of the fact that they played against Atlanta, but they played against the Bucs 2 weeks ago and they looked okay. They didn't score a ton of points against the Bucs, but at least they showed some semblance of an NFL team, an NFL offense, right?
Right. Competence is what we're looking for at this point.
Even Terrace Marshall came alive. Like we didn't even know he was alive at all in the NFL. 9 targets for him, 4 catches for 87 yards. And this is interesting because Marshall was a pretty good prospect coming out of LSU. And the fact that he is finding some relevance is worth taking note of, right? With the departure of Robbie Anderson, he is now the starter opposite DJ Moore. He played with Joe Burrow at LSU. They put up some big numbers together. There was 3 wide receivers who had very fantasy relevant seasons in 2018. Or was it 2019 with Burrow, Jamar Chase, who am I missing here? Justin Jefferson, right?
Yeah, I think Jefferson was Jefferson. Yep. Yeah, it was 2019. Yeah, you're right.
Yep. And then Terrace Marshall was the other guy, right? He played on the outside when Justin Jefferson was in the slot. Jamar Chase was on the outside. When Justin Jefferson left to the NFL, Terrace Marshall moved into the slot, and he continued to do his thing, right? On an offense that really wasn't that good, especially the passing offense. So worth taking a note on Terrace Marshall as somebody who, to be honest with you, I was high on coming into the league. I was high on him. I liked his game, but as a rookie, he didn't do anything. He couldn't crack the roster. He couldn't crack the starting lineup. He couldn't see the field. So despite him having a pretty good preseason coming into last year, so that was kind of interesting. But anyway, yeah. So I wanted to talk about a couple other things here. Travis Etienne. 24 carries, 156 yards and a touchdown. He also caught 3 targets in this game. He's an RB1 rest of the season pretty easily. There's going to be conversations about where in that top 12 is he, right? But if you rank him in the top 6, top 7, top 8, you can't get a lot of pushback at this point. The fact that James Robinson is not on this team anymore, and Doug Peterson gave him 27 opportunities in this game, and this offense was driven by Travis Etienne against the Broncos in London. So what are your thoughts on Etienne after seeing his big performance this week with, not only getting the yards, getting the production, but now getting a monster type of workload?
This is what we were waiting for, with Travis Etienne. And we kind of called this a little bit. We said that it was starting to shift even with James Robinson there, but James Robinson leaving just solidified that workload. It is the perfect storm, especially where he was drafted, for him being a league-winning running back. And if you traded for him before James Robinson left, you're even happier because the offense is heavily, if not exclusively, reliant on Travis Etienne producing to move the ball. Outside of Travis Etienne, there was nothing impressive, nothing even encouraging about this offense. If Travis Etienne wasn't playing, Jacksonville wouldn't have put up any points, I don't think. So he's the engine of the offense. He's really, the only thing that's working for the Jaguars right now. I think that the Jaguars can get better because we saw what they were doing to open the year when they went 2-1 in the first 3 games, and the offense didn't look that bad. And we had a bunch of guys contributing, but it's now just kind of been dumbed down to, okay, let's give the ball to Travis Etienne 25, 26 times a game, and we'll let him do his thing. And that's perfect for fantasy. But I think that the offense goes as Travis Etienne goes. He's going to have big days regardless because this was a good, Denver defense. And they looked like the Denver defense. It's not like they're missing too many guys. They have all the players that they need. I think that Travis Etienne is going to tear it up. This was a good defense, like I said. So if he goes against someone that isn't Denver's defense, he could be in for even more monster days. I would say yes. You have him ranked as a top 10 running back easily. Yeah, I think that's his floor. You say RB1 would be top 12. I think top 10 is where he should be at the lowest. I think that it would be a little bit pessimistic to say that he's anything less than top 10.
Now, you mentioned something. You said that this offense goes as Etienne goes. That sounds kind of familiar from something that somebody said yesterday. And I forget. Oh, you know what? It was Jerry Jones. It was
Oh,
that
right.
guy.
Yeah, him.
It was Jerry Jones. Tony Pollard absolutely went off in relief of Zeke Elliott. 14 carries for 131 yards and a hat trick, 3 touchdowns. And he didn't get a ton of work.
No.
First of all, the game was over kind of quickly, but Malik Davis, he was brought up from the practice squad. He was pretty involved, right, on early downs. And he also got some work in garbage time late. Like he got 4 or 5 carries late in that game. Once that game was pretty much over, and that didn't matter. But of course, after the game, Jerry Jones had to come out and say that the Cowboys goes as he goes.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? It pretty much means that there's not going to be a change in this backfield when Zeke comes back in terms of usage, and at least that's what he wants. And he's the boss at the end of the day, right? Mike McCarthy is going to listen to what Jerry says. That's his boss, right? And I'd imagine the split, being relatively close. Like before this past week, Pollard was on the field a little bit more, but Zeke was a little bit banged up. Even with Zeke out of this game, Pollard only saw 53% of the snaps, right? And it sucks because he's just a damn good running back, right? And he got it done regardless, not seeing that 90% snap share. But the good thing is at least they used him as the primary guy inside the 10. So he got the snaps you wanted him to get. He had the big play for the touchdown. So that was great to see. But we knew that he had it in him. But it does kind of suck that we won't be able to, really put his talent, to use if Zeke is healthy.
Yeah, and you're really only going to see this performance once, as well. I think the rest of the season, assuming Zeke stays healthy, because they are going on bye. So any chance of Zeke maybe missing time next week, just in case, it's out the window. It's really infuriating because we just saw what Tony Pollard can do, and like you said, only 15 opportunities, and he puts up 33.7 PPR points. Like he's just a machine. He can catch it, he can run it, and he's much more explosive. If you watch him just yesterday, get through the holes, he gets there 10 times faster. And then that long touchdown at the end of the game, Zeke gets caught up in the traffic, and he's getting tackled behind the line on that play. Tony Pollard has a second gear that Zeke doesn't have. He's shifty. He's just, a perfect running back that Jerry Jones is going to continue to bury with Zeke because he paid Zeke all that money. That's the only thing. I think I have my sights set on next season. I think Tony Pollard's done enough that I think that the Cowboys can cut their losses with Zeke. They have an out in his contract coming up this offseason. My sights are set on 2023 for Tony Pollard. But this is, Tony Pollard is the elite handcuff, in the NFL.
100%. 100%. And, I was going to call Zeke a cash cow, but he's not even a cash cow, because a cash cow, I looked it up. I looked up what a cash cow means.
The
cash cow, the definition actually means that you're getting a return from that cash cow. So all they're doing with Zeke is just giving him a lot more than what he's giving you, unfortunately.
Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to fight that. He's Zeke. The thing about Zeke is he's a good running back. He could pick up a blitz, but who pays a guy to? You don't pay a running back $90 million on a contract to pick up the blitz.
Right.
That's more than they're paying any other lineman. So it's like, come on, what are you doing?
Yeah. Exactly. All right. Courtland Sutton, man, he has been on a bad streak lately, and Jerry Jeudy coming on a little bit too. Like Jeudy caught 6 or 7 targets for 63 yards and a touchdown. Sutton caught 1 ball for 13 yards. He's on a 3-game streak right now where it hasn't been looking good for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can chalk it up to a couple bad matchups, but this wasn't really a bad matchup, right? Like Sutton should have came through in this game. And he didn't, right? Like Russ was all over the place. He had good moments, he had bad moments, he had terrible moments, he had really good moments, and he was just all over the place in this game. However, you're disappointed with Sutton. What are you doing with Sutton right now? Are you looking to move him? Are you worried about him? Well, we're obviously worried. I think that's not even the question. It's more like, what are you doing with him? Are you holding him until he has a good game, and then you selling him at that point, or are you just holding out hope that he's going to eventually come through and do what he was doing for the first several weeks of the season?
I'd be looking to hold and then sell at the next good game, if assuming Jerry Jeudy doesn't get moved by tomorrow in a trade. I don't think Jerry Jeudy's going to get moved because, I think the Broncos were just grasping for straws. And if Jerry Jeudy's what worked for this game to get them a win, they're not going to let that walk out of the building. I think they're just like going to take whatever's working for them now and stick with that. And that's what it's going to be. So I'd expect Jerry Jeudy to actually be, a decent factor moving forward. I think Courtland Sutton, we're seeing that whatever connection there was with Russell Wilson at the beginning of the season, it's not really there at this point anymore. And he's not getting the quality targets that he was getting at the beginning of the season. The air yards are down. He's just not doing Courtland Sutton things. He looks like he is a good receiver, but Russell Wilson's been all over the place. There's been a lot of volatility. Other guys have come up and gone down. KJ Hamler outproduced Courtland Sutton at this point. That's, inexcusable. I think that Courtland Sutton, I don't want to say he's met his ceiling, but it looks like whatever upside we were projecting, we thought this would be a really good offense. Obviously, that's out the window at this point, but I thought maybe Courtland Sutton would be able to be, one of the things that keeps Denver's offense a little bit relevant. It seems like they're just kind of letting him out to dry, which I said, a couple of weeks ago, he's not going to leave you out to dry, even in a bad game. That's what he's done the past 3 weeks. I'd look to sell him as soon as he has a good game, because at this point, he's not reliable week to week anymore.
Greg Dulcich is outproducing him right now, right? 4 for 87 this week, right? 6 for 51 on 9 targets the week before. So Dulcich is like, coming on as a rookie, and he's looking like a pretty good dynasty asset at this point. Like probably top 12 tight end in dynasty, at this point already, just through a couple games in his career. So, he should be picked up and he should be started, as a low end tight end 1 right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what else we have. And let's talk about Kyle Pitts. Okay. He came through this week, right? A lot of people probably benched him, right? I would have. And, there is a silver lining though. Like maybe you can finally trade him. Like I'm not holding out hope on this passing offense and anything being dependable from it, when it comes to Kyle Pitts, especially this season. I'm looking at this as an opportunity to sell after a good game to a team who doesn't have a good tight end, like somebody who's streaming, somebody who could use some upside. I'm selling him right now. Like I just can't depend on it. Like for this is not a dynasty take. Like dynasty, I love the guy. Like he's like one of the best dynasty assets to me. However, for redraft, like I don't trust the situation. I look at this as a blessing.
Yeah, no, this is a blessing, and this is the thing that you have going for you. So I think Kyle Pitts can continue to do his thing. I think that he's looked a little bit better. The offense has been a little bit better these past few weeks, but we've seen what he can be, when he's not catching touchdowns, which is pretty bad. This is a blessing because, like I said, I said this a little bit before the podcast, but he's had 2 passable weeks, So now he's looking like an asset, a tight end that you can start each week, and not have to worry about him just putting up 1 catch. Or was it he was notorious? He put up like 3.9 points like 3 times this season, exactly on the dot. This is, I think, the opportunity to sell right now. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot in return for him. I mean, it's not like he's ballooned his value to the point where he's going to be like this nice trade piece, but I think that he's now tradable where before he wasn't.
Yeah, you couldn't move him at all. Like even in a package, like nobody wanted him.
Yeah.
However, even during like some bad stretches, I've got a lot of questions about whether people should be buying him, right? And people were moving him and buying him left and right, where like the hope really wasn't there, right? And if you bought him and you started him this week, great. But I don't think that this is something that's dependable. So I would try to move on if I can.
Yeah.
There are other options like on the waiver wire that you can potentially pick up and start and get better success than Kyle Pitts for the rest of the season.
Yeah, 100%.
Justin Fields, like we mentioned earlier, continuing where he left off, 2 touchdowns through the air, 1 on the ground, and ran for 60 yards on the ground as well against a tough Dallas defense. We were talking about it last week. Like, dude, like we love what Justin Fields is doing right now, but to start him against Dallas, is he there yet? I don't think we should be doing that, but he came through.
Mm-hmm. And I had to do that like we said on a couple of episodes. That was the episode. Was it Friday? I
Yeah.
had to start him, and it pained me a little bit every time he scored, but it was fine. The silver lining was there. Justin Fields is looking like the dual threat that we wanted him to be. I think there's such a drastic change, and this was a Cowboys defense that was really good. There's such a drastic change in the way that he's playing. He's playing much more confident. He's putting the ball where it needs to be, and the play calling is finally starting to make the most of his skill set. We have a couple design runs. We have spots where he scrambles. He scrambles very well at this point. He's limiting the turnovers and the bad passes. He did have one interception called back by roughing the passer, but that's just the way they're calling it. Any quarterback will get that type of call these days. But other than that, Justin Fields, he's looking much more polished as a player. He's looking like much more consistent quarterback, and the offense is moving. And we said, obviously this is a ground game, a run first offense. That's what they base their offense around. But with Justin Fields as a running quarterback, is that a bad thing? He just has to be efficient as a passer, and he has the rushing upside to get you where you need to be in fantasy. We're starting to see that. We've seen that the past 2 weeks against the Patriots and the Cowboys, two very good defenses. I'm interested to see how things go next week against Miami. If that could be a shootout, Justin Fields could have another huge day. He's exited the range where you're not really confident starting him. I think you're now confident starting him. He is still a QB2 for me at this point, but a couple more good weeks, he's a QB1.
I think I'm ranking him as a low end QB1, man. I think I'm doing it. I mean, he has 3 straight weeks of top 12 performances at this point, and I am going to be starting him. Like, if he was able to do it against the Cowboys, he might be able to do it against other defenses. So I think moving forward, he's going to be my top 12. The way he's playing, like, good for him, man. He's doing his thing. And he has a couple of running backs in the backfield who can catch the ball, and this offense is getting better because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Khalil Herbert, he had one more carry than David Montgomery in this game. Montgomery's did lose a fumble. That might affect things moving forward, right? But, Khalil Herbert, he did his thing on his 16 carries, 91 yards, and a red zone touchdown. Montgomery outsnapped him 56-22, though. Okay, so keep that in mind. He was on the field a ton. But, we also have to keep in mind that Khalil Herbert, one thing that he sucks at is pass protection, right? He's not good at pass protection. He's not going to be good in pass protection. So this is a situation where, like, there's a huge delta when it comes to that particular skill set. Montgomery's going to be on the field. He's going to be involved. So regardless, though, Khalil Herbert needs to be picked up off the waiver wire. He's still, like, hovering near that 50% mark in terms of rostership. He has to be picked up at this point. He's just doing his thing. He's going to get touches at this point.
There's no reason to not have him on your team if he's on the waiver wire. Just take him because you could use him. He's one of the players that you could package up in a 2-for-1 deal, and he actually has value. But with Justin Fields, the other thing, you say he's on a hot streak. He's had over 60 yards rushing the past 3 games. He hit 60 yards rushing against Dallas. But before that, the past 2 games before that, it's over 80 yards rushing both times. He's finding his feet. And I said the play calling is working wonders for him. All he has to do is be efficient, and he's going to produce for you. I called him this year's Jalen Hurts. Suddenly, I'm looking like, Nostradamus over here because Justin Fields is looking good. And I think that his price is what makes this, the most encouraging. The way that he was being drafted, it was much lower than a lot of other quarterbacks, and he's starting to return. And I'm liking what I'm seeing from the Bears right now. I think that obviously the future is bright for them with Justin Fields at quarterback. This might work.
Awesome. Okay, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle again, the most explosive wide receiver duo in the NFL, and it's not even close. Tyreek, 12 catches for 188 yards. Waddle, 8 for 106 and 2 touchdowns. That led to Tua throwing for 382 yards and 3 touchdowns. This offense is explosive. Mike McDaniel's combination with Tua and these playmakers is the best in the NFL right now.
Yeah, and that is hands down. You look at the receivers, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, what they're doing for Tua. They're all playing off each other. It's not like, Tua is only, relevant, fantasy relevant because, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are doing their thing. Now, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle we've seen have the highest ceiling when Tua is playing. It's just undeniably great for fantasy. And you're perfectly fine starting either of these 2 receivers as a wide receiver 1 because that's just the way that they're being used. This is a pass-first offense. Mike McDaniel, man, he is just, carving up defenses using his playmakers, getting the ball in the hands of the players that need it. I mean, I didn't think this was coming. I thought that, like I said, Jalen Waddle, my first piece of content for Upper Hand Fantasy was that the Jalen Waddle breakout, it's going to have to wait because Tyreek Hill is in Miami. And now he's having a breakout, even with Tyreek Hill in Miami. And Tua looks really good. So I think this is, best case scenario. I think they're both top 5 receivers right now in fantasy points total overall this season. Start all 3 of them with confidence every week.
Hell yeah, man. And, we had both these guys in our top 10 this week, and they showed out. The matchups were amazing. So continue to start these guys and expect big things, moving forward. Through 8 games, they have the most receiving yards ever for a wide receiver duo in the NFL, which is awesome. Okay.
It's ridiculous.
Raheem Mostert had 15 touches himself, but didn't come through with the big game in such a good matchup. It was all Tyreek and all Waddle in this game. So that it's unfortunate, but listen, when Tyreek and Waddle are going to do what they did, it is what it is. Raheem Mostert had such a good matchup. I ranked him pretty high. The Lions defense wasn't that good in terms of, defending the run this year. It was a good start. It just didn't work out. It is what it is.
And with Raheem Mostert, it's not even, he didn't completely, screw you over. I mean, 7 points, it's not anything to be happy about, but he didn't completely screw you over. But that's kind of what you're getting when you have an offense that has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and it's going to be pass first. This is the type of week. I expect to see this type of week more often than not, where just Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle go crazy, and Raheem Mostert's, just he's the running back. That's what he does.
Exactly. I mean, it's one of those things where you could probably buy Raheem Mostert. Like, I'm just so hesitant of buying somebody who's never had this type of workload at his age, but he's somebody who has like a workload on a good offense that I like, so that's the intriguing part of Raheem Mostert. And when he has a subpar performance like this against a bad defense, like I'm personally like, it's such an it looks like an opportunity to buy to me in normal situations, but I'm not sure if I'm willing to do it though.
The other thing to note with Raheem Mostert is that Alec Ingold vultured a goal line touchdown for some reason. He got 1 carry. It was a 1-yard touchdown. Add a touchdown Raheem Mostert's day, and it's suddenly passable. So just something to note, because I don't know what Alec Ingold is doing taking carries from Raheem Mostert, but we knew that this was going to be like, a mess of a backfield coming into the season. So yeah, that could be your silver line. Okay, he just got screwed. You talk about missed points. I know Steve over at Fantasy Guys does that post. I would consider that missed points.
Definitely. DeAndre Swift returned to a modest fantasy day. He returned to a near full-time role. Right. And I think it'll grow even more next week. But he ended up with only 5 carries, didn't do much on those 5 carries at all. He had 5 targets as well. So decent day in terms of workload. They didn't bring him fully back. Jamal Williams ended up with guess how many touchdowns he had? 2. Another 2 touchdown day for Jamal Williams.
Jamal Williams 2 touchdown outing. That's all he does. It's 2 or none.
It's 2 or none. Exactly. So, I'm happy starting DeAndre Swift next week as a RB2. But that will go up as we go on. I was fine starting Raheem Mostert over DeAndre Swift this week because I love the matchup and I wasn't sure how much, time Swift was going to have on the field. He did kind of save your day with that receiving touchdown, in the red zone. So that's great. But just continue to start him and he will be fine. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. DeAndre Hopkins, he came through on the matchup we were talking about this week. 12 catches on 13 targets for 159 yards and a touchdown. Zach Ertz, he caught a touchdown. Rondale Moore went 7 for 92 and a touchdown, 8 targets. Hopkins was back to his normal role. He ran 52 routes on the perimeter this week, and guess where he ran 51 of those routes?
Where?
On that left side, where he's always running routes. Last week he ran about 50% of his routes from the slot. Um, so and this particular week, like he moved to the left side for most of those. Like it wasn't 50-50 like it was last week. Rondell Moore ran 50-50 this week. Almost all of his routes were on the right side in the perimeter where he can't do anything. But this week, 50% of his routes from the slot. But the fact that they ran so many pass plays in this game allowed him to run 31 routes from the slot. So that was enough. Hopefully he continues to move back to an like all slot type of role. But the good thing is, at least with this scenario, he never leaves the field.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Rondell Moore, when we talked about this at length, I think the other day, every time we talk about the Cardinals, talk about the coaching and that way that they're being played. But if Rondell Moore is in the slot, he's going to do his thing. And I think DeAndre Hopkins is working wonders for Rondell Moore at this point because now the coverage is pulled off of him. Lucky for Rondell Moore, I don't think he's ever had to deal with number one coverage. As soon as Marquise Brown went down, DeAndre Hopkins came back. But my big takeaway from this game, obviously the receivers were good. My big takeaway from this game is that Kyler Murray looked like, the Kyler Murray that we wanted him to be. And I said about this last week. If Kyler Murray didn't have a good day against his Vikings defense, that I'd be worried about it. I'm not worried about it right now. And it looks like the offense is finding its feet. Kyler Murray threw some touchdowns. And obviously, like we said, it was pass heavy, high-scoring game, and a negative game script for pretty much most of the day. I was happy to see Kyler Murray do his thing. I don't think that there's anything for me to worry about now with Kyler Murray. We've seen that he can do his thing. We've seen that the upside is there. It's not necessarily world-breaking like it was to open the past two seasons. He started the past two seasons like red hot, and he had a really nice ceiling. But Kyler Murray, we finally saw the upside that he's supposed to have, and I think that it could continue.
Now, when Hollywood Brown comes back, oh, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, baby. Like, assuming that Hollywood is going to, look like himself, like after that foot injury, this is going to be a pretty good offense, man. It really is. Because Hopkins is looking pretty good, too. Right?
Hopkins hasn't lost a step. Like, it's just crazy.
Like, he gained a step.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah, dude. Like, the dude, like, he's looking really good, man. Looking a lot better than I thought he would look, to be honest with you. Like, he's looking much better than he's looked all last year. He was itching to come back. There's no doubt about it. So we'll see, like, if this type of target share continues, 2 double-digit target games for him, 2 games in a row with him back. So we'll see how that, what that looks like moving forward. Like, I don't know. Like, I wanted to sell DeAndre Hopkins, but after 2 straight games of him getting some serious, the thing is, like, his matchup was too good this week. And, we were kind of expecting this to happen. Is this a situation where it drops off or does it continue? You know what? Like, I think I might hold him at this point. He's just looked really, really good. So,
I
that's
think
how I'm dealing with it.
I think your best bet, you're not going to be able to buy him because everyone's like, man, he came back.
You can't buy him.
This is the savior of some people's fantasy seasons. They might have had him riding the IR the whole season, and now he's on their roster. Maybe they had him on their bench the whole season, and he's come back and he's done this. He's maybe won them 2 weeks in a row. You're not going to be able to buy him from those owners. But if you have him already, you could hold, or if you're not too attached to him, you could sell him for, like, I think, a huge haul. His value is as high as it's going to be, I think, this season. I think it's going to be hard to follow up 33-point performance against Minnesota in Seattle in week 9 because, Seattle's defense
tougher matchup for sure.
Seattle's defense suddenly looks a little bit better. And with Hollywood Brown coming back, that could be on the horizon a couple weeks out. I think that this is as high as his value is going to be. And you could get a really nice haul for him back because he looks like he's a fantasy wide receiver 1, when he plays. He's averaging 27 points a game.
Yeah. Alvin Kamara, he himself had a 3-touchdown game. Another hat trick. Absolutely killed it, man. In addition to his 18 carries, he caught 9 of 10 targets. Right. That's now 4 straight games with at least 6 catches. So he had 6 catches, 7 catches, 9 catches for Kamara over the last 4. And over the past 4 weeks, he's been the overall RB1. So it's a good thing we told you guys to buy Kamara after his slow start to the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like over the first couple weeks, didn't look great. He looked fine to me, like in terms of like himself. But the team was off to a bad start. But we just knew who Kamara was, and in those type of situations, you know that the opportunity is going to be there, and he's going to do his thing. So I'm glad that he's showing out and showing everybody that he's still, who we thought he was.
Yeah, and what's been the common denominator for Alvin Kamara doing his thing? It's Andy Dalton. Who would have thought? Suddenly the offense looks undeniably better with Andy Dalton at quarterback than Jameis Winston. And, I had high hopes for Jameis Winston. I
Same
was
here.
hoping that he'd be able to look back and do his thing. He'd look like he was before he got injured last season, but that hasn't been the case. And it looks like Dennis Allen made the right choice by putting Andy Dalton in at quarterback and letting him stay, because the Saints offense, suddenly is unstoppable, and their defense looked good yesterday. And, the conversation will probably get to Devontae Adams and, the Raiders offense in a minute. But the Saints offense looks really good. It's now running through Alvin Kamara again, and that's only good news for him. Alvin Kamara should be back. He's boosted back to RB1 status, if not elite RB1 status, because he's been doing his thing with Andy Dalton at quarterback. As long as Andy Dalton's there, I'm happy with Alvin Kamara. And I'll be the first to say, I was hesitant about Alvin Kamara when you said to buy him. I think that was even a couple weeks ago. I was hesitant. I was like, maybe the offense seems to have changed. It's not necessarily what it was before. It looks like I'm going to have to, eat my humble pie on that one.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up. AJ Brown, yet another 3 touchdowns for him on Sunday. Great matchup, and he came through in 1 year week. 6 for 156 yards and 3 touchdowns. This was coming. Like, there was going to be a positive touchdown regression coming for him, and we talked about buying him low too, because he was available. People were selling him, right? Like, he wasn't viewed as this like wide receiver 1. But now, after this 3 touchdown performance on a points per game basis, he's wide receiver 6 this season. So he is a wide receiver 1, and this is one of the great calls. Like, I love this situation because he came to this team. A lot of people didn't think he could get it done with Jalen Hurts, number 1. That Jalen Hurts wasn't going to get him the ball, feed him the ball. They thought it was going to be a very wide open target distribution. There's too many mouths to feed. No. AJ Brown's that dude, and he's getting it done for you.
Yeah. Love what I saw from AJ Brown yesterday and the Eagles offense in general. This could have been a much bigger day if the Steelers weren't bad. You know what I'm saying? He had 3 touchdowns in the first half. They went up. There was no need to throw the ball then. They didn't have to throw to AJ Brown. They could rest their starters. Obviously, Jalen Hurts played through most of the game. Jalen Hurts had a really good day too. But AJ Brown finally, like we said about that positive touchdown regression coming, his career touchdown percent of 13, he's at 6% this season. That's gone up at this point. AJ Brown is a big play waiting to happen. It hasn't happened, for a couple weeks in a row. And at that point, he's on the verge of it. You just have to wait for it to come, and it happened. So I think that we're going to continue to see more production like this from AJ Brown, more production that is much better than it is, what we've seen in the past couple of weeks where it's worse. I think that this was a great matchup, and AJ Brown did exactly what he was supposed to do against them. We're not surprised by this, and it's just great to see AJ Brown's gonna be able to do it against any defense. But this one I think was pretty easy to see coming.
Derrick Henry ran the ball 32 times against the Texans for 219 yards and 2 touchdowns. We kind of saw this coming, right? Like everybody did, right? The Texans were absolutely atrocious against the run game, right? And like, this was a perfect storm right here. Derrick Henry was like, oh, okay, you guys think against the run. Well, it just so happens that I get 20 to 25 carries when that happens, and he ended up with 32 for 200 plus yards, and he absolutely destroyed him. And the Titans won the game. Willis, I was going to talk about Willis real quick. 5 carries, 10 pass attempts. This
not
game,
good.
the Titans were not going to let him pass the ball just yet. This game was literally on Derrick Henry's shoulders. So, I guess Malik is not the fantasy relevant guy we thought he'd be just yet. He did, we weren't sure who was going to get the start this week, and he didn't, get that much time to prep. But it was all Derrick Henry this week for them.
Right. And why wouldn't you have it be Derrick Henry? Against Houston, it's death, taxes, and Derrick Henry putting up 200 yards. That's pretty all much. It is. That's how it works for him against Houston. In the past 3 games, he's averaging, I think, 230 yards on the ground per game. It's just ridiculous. And with Malik Willis, he said, I wasn't expecting too much. I mean, I thought maybe he'd be a little bit more fantasy relevant than he was. But when you have Derrick Henry running the way he was, there's no reason to do anything else. He was the only fantasy relevant player really on this offense outside of maybe Dontrell Hilliard, who didn't look bad either. 8 carries for 83 yards. He didn't have a touchdown, so his numbers aren't that inflated. But, it was all the Titans run game on against Houston yesterday. And that's, what we anticipated, what we expected. I think we had him ranked as the RB3, was it this week? I think that's where he finished. Maybe he might have been he is the RB3 behind Kamara and McCaffrey.
Yeah. And it's funny because whenever we think about Derrick Henry going up against a team like the Texans, you're like, everybody knows what's going to happen here, but they still can't stop him.
It makes no sense.
Like, just crowd the box. Doesn't matter. They're not going to get it done. You know that Malik Willis wasn't going to get it done through the air. You have one job, and that's how bad the Texans offense is. They just can't. There's no, even without balance, they're not going to be able to stop you. It doesn't matter.
It's just Derrick Henry is looking like the king again, which is awesome. I mean, he's on a fantastic scoring streak, I think, these past few weeks. I mean, 25, 23, 27, went on by 16 and now 35. Made up for that 16-point performance by going over 30 points this week. Derrick Henry's back.
He's back. 49ers, they're making Christian McCaffrey their bell cow pretty quickly.
Yeah.
81% of snaps, 27 opportunities. That includes that one pass that he threw for a touchdown. But the split was 18 carries for 94 yards and a goal line touchdown. He caught 8 of 9 targets for 55 yards and another touchdown. By the way, that touchdown was awesome. The one that he caught in the end zone, he ran out into the flat. He like Jimmy G was kind of scrambling a little bit. He read the zone coverage. He ran into the end zone, and Jimmy G put it on him. Great catch. He looked like a wide receiver out there, right?
Yeah.
And then he threw that touchdown to Brandon Ayuk, which was a little bit of a trick play. So he threw a touchdown, he ran in a touchdown, and he caught a touchdown. And that's the first player in a long-ass time to do that.
2005. And I forget who the player was. I just saw that stat flying around, and we put out a post about it. That was 2005.
It was LaDainian Tomlinson.
Okay, that makes sense. Believe it.
That makes sense.
Yep. I mean, who else, right? This is the, I don't want to say 21st century, but, it's not that long ago that LaDainian Tomlinson was tearing it up. But this is the new wave, LaDainian Tomlinson and Christian McCaffrey. We talked about, his volume maybe going down. It didn't really happen. And, the actual quality of his touches has gone so far up. I mean, I'm not surprised by this at all. I didn't think 40 points was going to be what he did. I thought maybe, like a solid day, 25 points was going to be like what we saw. But Christian McCaffrey in this offense is just going to be ridiculous. Like he's the best weapon, best offensive weapon in the NFL when he's healthy.
Is there any other running back for fantasy you'd rather have rest of season than Christian McCaffrey?
No. And that's an easy answer. Just in this offense, much more creative, much more fantasy conducive, not just because, the players on it are better, but the coaching is better, much more competent than it was in Carolina. Christian McCaffrey's in a perfect position, and his value has skyrocketed even higher than it was when he was on the Panthers.
Which is crazy. Now, if you drafted him at the 101 like we recommended, you're doing all right. But if you drafted the other guy, Jonathan Taylor, a consensus 101, you're not doing so great right now. Okay. He had a fumble loss in that game. He had a decent game on the ground, but didn't get a whole lot of volume. Right. Mm-hmm. And then the fumble kind of killed it for you. On top of that, he had a little bit of an ankle injury. Right. And he was getting that ankle taped up. So he was kind of in and out the game. Wasn't great. Hopefully that ankle injury isn't serious and he's able to practice just fine this week and, kind of come through going forward. But as of right now, listen, I'm still starting Jonathan Taylor, right, as I would say high-end RB2 right now, right, because there's a lot of good running backs that are, worthy of that RB1 title right now. You got Travis Etienne moving up there. You have Dameon Pierce moving up there, even though he didn't have a great game, but he's up there, right? You have Kenneth Walker moving up there. You have, Alvin Kamara. You have Joe Mixon. You have all these guys, between the RB6 and the RB12. Those guys are going to move up and down, but Jonathan Taylor right now, he hasn't been able to get it done, but you're still starting him. I'm not selling him, right? I'm even, if you have a good record and you can afford to buy him, I'd even buy him because I would not be surprised if he has a late season run where he has 6 games of just absolutely just tearing it up, right? It's possible. Yeah. But as of right now, it hasn't been great. So what are your thoughts on Jonathan Taylor overall moving forward out of this game?
Very disappointing game. This was supposed to be a pretty good matchup. Washington defense isn't very good. And they were on a 2-game win streak, but this isn't a very good team. I think Jonathan Taylor should have had a better day than he did. Obviously, the injury hurts. he did lose a fumble and he didn't get anything done through in the passing game. So that definitely pulled his numbers down a bit. But I'm not going to bet against Jonathan Taylor personally. Like I said this, I've been preaching this, I think, the past few weeks now, that Jonathan Taylor has always come out slow a little bit and then he heats up during the second half of the season. I'm counting on that again if we get to Thanksgiving and he hasn't had a game or two, then I'd worry. But at this point, I'm not starting him as anything less than, what I drafted him to be. If I draft him to be my RB1, chances are I don't have anybody else to be my RB1. I'm going to start him there. I think he has that upside. He just hasn't been hitting it because A, he's been banged up, and B, because this Colts offense just is not very good. The touchdown upside is not really there at this point. So I think that I'm not encouraged by what I'm seeing from Jonathan Taylor, but I'm holding out hope. I'm not at the point where it's like I'm holding out hope and things are terrible and I'm not thinking it's going to turn around. I think it's going to turn around. I think it's going to. But at this point, you just have to start him and hope that he has a good day.
Damian Harris, he made a little bit of a dent in Ramondre Stevenson's usage just a little bit. Stevenson played on 63% of snaps in this game, and they did split early down work, basically right down the middle, as at least snaps, when it comes to snaps, and they rotated by drive. Stevenson was their passing down guy, so he will continue to get the edge over Damian Harris, and he ended up catching 7 of 8 targets for 72 yards, in addition to his 71 yards on the ground. So he's going to continue to get work, and if this type of role continues, he's going to be a solid to high-end RB2 play every single week. Now, that's assuming that these targets, continue to come, right? And if they do, great. If they don't, you're looking at more of a solid RB2 rather than like the high-end RB2. But I just don't think, as long as Damian Harris is healthy, and if Ramondre is only getting like 63% of snaps in that range, he's not the RB1 play anymore. But he's still a very solid fantasy asset. He still scored, 20 PPR fantasy points for you this week. Just to kind of keep in mind, what's happening in that backfield. And then Damian Harris is kind of still a part of that backfield after him coming back and him being removed from the hamstring injury for about a week now.
Right. And if I have Ramondre Stevenson, it sucks to see Damian Harris get a little bit more work. We saw what he could be when he gets the whole workload, but he still isn't bad. He's still clearly head and shoulders, I think, above Damian Harris at this point. He's getting majority of the receiving work. I'm happy starting him every week as an RB2 with an RB1 upside. And chances are you were starting him at RB1 as like an RB1, just because that's just how it shook out. Like, I don't think anybody drafted
he's been finishing as an RB1 like every single week.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like for me to say like, oh, he's RB2, like, right. Is he really?
So it's like
finishing every week.
Yeah. I'm relating to like, where did I draft him? Chances are, even though there was a lot of hype coming around, his name, we know the Patriots offense is a little bit handicapped. It's not that explosive. So chances are you had Ramondre Stevenson, you're thinking, okay, best case scenario, he's an RB2. He's producing like an RB1. You're not, okay, Damian Harris got a couple carries. He got a couple catches. Big deal. Ramondre Stevenson, like I said, still head and shoulders above him. I'm not worried about it at all. Ramondre Stevenson's the guy.
I was talking about the Colts offense, and I didn't hit on Michael Pittman yet, or Sam Ehlinger. So Ehlinger was really focused on these outside wide receivers for the most part. Paris Campbell he only got maybe a couple targets in this game, but Michael Pittman still saw 9 targets for a 41% target share. Alec Pierce saw 5 targets for a 23% target share. So those are the guys that he was going after, opposed to Paris Campbell, who only had 2 targets. So Paris Campbell, had a solid game because he was pretty efficient on his catches and he had that one long run as well. Yeah. But it seems to me like, the good thing is here, even though Michael Pittman didn't have a big day in terms of receiving yardage, at least he got the receptions, and at least Sam Ehlinger was looking for him. So this is a positive sign for Pittman. It could have been a lot worse, but the fact that, Pittman was able to get that 40% target share from Ehlinger, regardless of the fact that it was like a little bit, shorter depth on the shorter depth side, I'm okay with this. This is encouraging for Michael Pittman moving forward.
Yeah, what this suggests for me is that, he can continue to produce like he was producing with Matt Ryan at quarterback. I don't think he takes a hit down, or I don't think he goes up. I think it's very similar to what we had him at before. I think Michael Pittman's going to continue to produce. He's going to make his money in PPR, catching passes. It might not be so much the deep threat anymore, but I think he's still, a threat to score on a deep pass anytime. It's just, it might not come with Sam Ehlinger at quarterback, at least these next few weeks. As Sam Ehlinger warms up, and if they're actually if the Colts are actually, intending to keep him in the rest of the season, the chemistry could build a little bit. If they let that chemistry build, Michael Pittman could get a bump for me in the future. But as things stand right now, I'm valuing Michael Pittman exactly like he was 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and at the beginning of the season.
And Ellinger, he didn't look too bad in his debut. I thought he looked all right. And, I think he can probably build on that. So not bad at all. He completed 17 passes on 23 attempts, 74% completion percentage, solid, and threw for 200 yards. So, as a Colts fan, like I would be like, that's not bad. That's really not bad for his debut. And, he only lost by 1 point. So,
and late into the game, the Colts actually had, I think it was a 16-7 lead. So it's like the defense kind of folded. Yeah, the offense didn't produce, and that could have been a reason that Washington was able. They left the door open. It might be why Washington was able to get back into the game. But I'm not, mad about Sam Ehlinger. I wasn't expecting really much. So at this point, I think that we can move forward with optimism.
The Rams' backfield was an absolute mess this week. Ronnie Rivers led the backfield. What's a great name, by the way, Ronnie Rivers. It sounds like a name from Chippendales. Ronnie Rivers.
Yeah.
Leads the backfield with 8 carries. Dale Henderson had 4 carries. Malcolm Brown made a comeback with 4 himself. Malcolm Brown was also their goal line back, not Darrell Henderson. So right now it's extremely trusted. It's hard to trust Darrell Henderson, believe it or not. And I'd be surprised if the Rams don't bring in somebody today in a trade. And if they don't, I'll be very surprised that when Kyren Williams is healthy, that he's going to be extremely involved in this offense.
Yeah. So what does this suggest that Ronnie Rivers was leading the backfield, that Darrell Henderson had 4 carries and Malcolm Brown had 5? For me, what this suggests is that, yes, they're going to bring somebody in. And I think it's going to be Kareem Hunt. I saw a report somewhere that they were linking Kareem Hunt to LA. I think if they're going to move for anybody, it's going to be Kareem Hunt. However, this season is kind of slipping away from the Rams. It's not a runaway division that they're in. The Seahawks are only 2 games ahead of the Rams right now. But I look at the future that the Rams have, the draft picks that they have. Things aren't working for them right now. I think they can turn around too. But I think it's worth considering, at this point, is it worth going all out and trying to salvage what's left here? Maybe lose more draft capital in the process if you're not going to go to the Super Bowl this season. It doesn't look like they have the firepower. It doesn't look like they're playing well enough to get to the Super Bowl at this point. Obviously, things can change. I wonder if that might, make them hesitant to pull the trigger on that type of trade, because I'm not sure what they're asking. I mean, a 4th round pick, if that's what it was rumored to be for Kareem Hunt. But I mean, I'm interested to see how they play that, because it seems like I don't think they have a 1st round pick for another few years. So we'll see what they do with that. But I think if they're going to add anybody, like this tells me that Kareem Hunt, say someone like Kareem Hunt joins this offense, he's going to be immediate RB1.
100%. And he'll be a fantasy RB1 as well. And you can say what you want about the offense itself, and Kareem Hunt is that dude.
Yeah, and they're lacking in the run game, and that's what's kind of making them one-dimensional and forcing Matthew Stafford to throw a lot. The offense is missing a piece in the backfield because they don't have a Darrell Henderson. They were banking on Cam Akers being that guy. It didn't work out. I think that they get Kareem Hunt, it'll make the offense a lot better overall.
Garrett Wilson had a pretty good game with Zach Wilson. This was without Corey Davis and with Elijah Moore only running 7 routes. So Elijah Moore is officially in Robert Saleh's doghouse.
Yeah,
it is what it is. And, we'll see if the Jets trade him today. I doubt it. But still, Garrett Wilson, at least we know he can get it done when he's given the targets. He went 6 for 115. When he's got the targets in the past, he's got it done. So very healthy. Very good rookie wide receiver. And he's one of the top prospects coming in, and he's going to be a very good NFL wide receiver. Garrett Wilson could potentially make his way into being startable at some point. Right now, I'm not sure if I trust him or this passing offense at all. But if I see another good game from Garrett, I might be okay with it. And with Corey Davis out potentially again, I might just roll him out there if I need the help.
Yeah, I think that you could do that with Corey Davis out. We just saw what he did this week, obviously. And we talk about the Patriots defense being good. It's a good Patriots defense. So I wasn't expecting too much from the Jets offense. I think this is about what I expected. I'm not rooting against your Jets or anything, but
that's okay.
Bill Belichick.
I don't take it personally when it comes to the Jets, man.
Bill Belichick, he tends to eat young quarterbacks alive. So Zach Wilson also has a bad history against the Patriots. I think when he has played them, he kind of melts down, and he threw 3 picks. I think not being on the field because he threw all those picks, kind of hurts Garrett Wilson's upside. If Zach Wilson is going to continue to turn the ball over, we could see this offense just kind of lagging behind a little bit in production because they're just not on the field. I like Garrett Wilson, though. I think that he could be a good receiver while, obviously Elijah Moore, like you said, is in the doghouse and Corey Davis is out. I mean, Denzel Mims had that one big catch or 2 big catches, something like that. So maybe look out for him at this point.
The Jets ran a bunch of 12 personnel in this game, but because of the fact that they were okay just leaving Elijah Moore off the field, Tyler Conklin and CJ Uzomah both, Conklin played 75% of snaps and Uzomah played 63% of snaps. So that tells you right there. And Conklin had 11 targets because of his 78% route participation, which he wasn't getting lately. But the fact that they were like, you know what, let's just leave Elijah Moore off the field. We have other good players. So Denzel Mims was the starting wide receiver opposite Garrett Wilson. And Braxton Berrios was coming in also before Elijah Moore, so he's definitely in the doghouse right now. And it's possible that if they continue to run a lot of 12 personnel, then CJ Uzomah should be on the radar. But it seems like a fluid situation to me to see, what their real personnel packages are going to be for the most part moving forward.
Yeah.
Let's see if I had anything else to talk about this week. James Robinson, he made his Jets debut. He trailed Michael Carter by 2 carries in this game. So Carter did see 7 targets. And, it's, dude, the target distribution on the Jets, completely shifted this week. It went all over the place. These running backs weren't getting that many targets. But if Carter's only going to get 2 more carries than James Robinson in Robinson's first game with them, we might end up seeing him being the primary guy on early downs at some point. And it could be soon. It does suck, though. Ty Johnson was on the field way too much in this game. Just get him off the field, please. He didn't need to be on the field this much. And, if it's Carter and Robinson or Robinson and Carter, that's what you want. You don't want a third running back in the mix. And that's what it was this past week. So it seems to me like James Robinson might make his way potentially to that 1A spot on early downs. It is possible. So just keep an eye on that if you do have James Robinson.
It could be. I think anything that James Robinson does, though, ultimately in that role, he's going to be living in the shadow of Breece Hall, which is going to kind of leave people hanging and wanting more. But I think that James Robinson, if he does make it his way to that role, it's going to be much like he had in Jacksonville, which is funny to think. He ends up right back in the same situation he was in, even though he did move.
On one knee, DK Metcalf led his team in targets with 10. He caught 6 of them for 55 yards and a touchdown. Tyler Lockett, he was having a day to forget, after dropping some key passes. He dropped a touchdown pass that, very unlike him. But he ended up coming through with the touchdown late, so he came through for the Seahawks. And, it was a very well-timed touchdown pass that he caught. And, as far as DK goes, I guess we're starting DK Metcalf like he's just fine. There's probably still some risk associated to that patellar tendon, not being all put together right now. But, he looked just fine. And he looked explosive as ever in this game.
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to be playing. I saw him get carted off last week. I'm like, okay, this is it. It's not shit this time. He's getting carted off, and this is going to be he's missing some time. I couldn't believe he played. I left him out of my lineup in one league because I was like, okay, he's probably not going to be 100%. He's producing exactly like he was before the injury and the rest of the season. Obviously he's not game breaking. He's not game breaking receiver right now. Just because there's plenty of weapons on that offense suddenly. And Geno Smith does a good job distributing the ball, but this looks like exactly what we had before the injury. So until anything else happens, like you said, let's just ignore the injury. It's DK Metcalf. You're going to start him each week. So from now on, I'm starting him.
Yeah, man. That's pretty much all I had. I did want to tell you guys about a few underdog pick'ems that I liked for tonight. Joe Burrow. Oh, by the way, today's Halloween. So we have both orange teams playing against each other, of course, and the orange and black team playing against each other. So that's
the hat tip to the schedule makers.
Oh yeah, Bengals and Browns this week, division game. So I like Joe Burrow over 15.5 rushing yards. I like him over 34.5 pass attempts. He's pretty much done that almost in every game this year. T. Higgins over 76.5 receiving yards. I like Tyler Boyd under, or at least lower, than 64.5 receiving yards today, just because he has a pretty tough matchup out of the slot. So I'm it's hard to go on the lowers here because you always want to just assume that things are going to just go crazy, but that's the lower that I'm going to take in this game. And then Kareem Hunt, who knows what kind of usage he gets today? Does he get moved? Does he not? If he's not if he's active, maybe he doesn't get a ton of work, but I'm looking at 53.5 scrimmage yards, lower than 53.5 scrimmage yards for him in this game. He hasn't got a lot of work over the past 2 weeks, and it could be because they were planning on trading him. So we'll see how that works out today. And then I had Donovan Peoples-Jones over 45.5 receiving yards, something he's done in almost every game over the past several weeks. And on top of that, you have David Njoku out as well. So, a couple more targets going his way. I do like him. Now, use the code UpperHand on UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app. Use code UpperHand, and you will get your first deposit doubled up to $100. So make sure you use this promo. Take advantage. Enjoy tonight's game. And we'll be back tomorrow for our waiver wire show at 9 a.m. Eastern time right here on YouTube, and it'll be out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. If you could subscribe wherever you listen, that would mean the world to us. We would love that. We appreciate that, and we'll see you guys soon. All right, take it easy. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.